The vote passed in less than 30 seconds. No discussion, no hesitation. Just a dry chorus of eyes echoing off walnut-paneled walls, while a man who had built the company from nothing sat at the far end of the table, uninvited to speak. Daniel Whitmore did not raise his hand. He did not argue. He simply watched the last sliver of control slide out of reach, felt it in his chest like a door locking from the outside. The boardroom lights hummed, cold, surgical, the kind that flattened faces and drained warmth from skin. A digital clock on the wall read 9:12 in the morning. His hands rested flat on the table, palms down, veins pronounced steady, despite the pressure building behind his ribs. Across from him, his son leaned back in a leather chair that had not existed before Daniel's money. Evan Whitmore crossed his legs, polished shoe, bouncing once, then stopping. He smiled the way people do when they believe the ending is already written. "It's just a procedural adjustment," Evan said, voice smooth, practiced. "Temporary. For stability." Stability. The word hung there heavy with insult. Daniel's attorney, Margaret Cole, did not look at him. She stared at her notes as if eye contact might crack something open she could no longer control. He knew that look. He had hired her 40 years earlier, when both of them were younger and hungrier. Today, she looked tired, careful. A man 2 seats down cleared his throat. Another checked his phone. The motion had already passed. The silence afterward was worse. Daniel stood. The chair scraped softly against the floor. A small sound, but it cut through the room. Heads turned. Evan's smile tightened just a fraction. Daniel did not say a word. He buttoned his coat with slow precision, the fabric hanging looser than it used to. He felt the weight of every eye tracking him, measuring weakness, age, inevitability. At the door he paused. Not for them. For himself. 47 years earlier, he had walked into a shuttered steel mill with borrowed money and a vision no one else wanted. He remembered the smell of oil and rust, the way his hands had bled, learning machines no one bothered to explain to him. He remembered sleeping in his office, eating vending machine sandwiches, signing payroll checks before paying himself. And now, in the room that bore his name etched into the glass, he had been outvoted like a liability. Daniel stepped into the hallway. The door closed behind him with a soft, final click. The elevator ride down was silent. His reflection in the mirrored walls looked older than he felt. 73 years old, shoulders still broad, spine straight, eyes sharp though rimmed with fatigue. He adjusted his collar, exhaled slowly. In the lobby, a security guard glanced up from his desk. Young, nervous, new. He hesitated, then nodded with exaggerated politeness, as if unsure whether respect was still required. Daniel walked past him without acknowledgement. Outside, the city pressed in. Traffic groaned. A bus hissed to a stop. Somewhere a siren wailed, then faded. Life moved forward, indifferent. His driver stood by the curb, holding the car door open. Daniel stopped short. "Not today," he said. The driver blinked. "Sir, I'll walk." It was late autumn in western Pennsylvania. The air smelled like damp leaves and distant smoke. Daniel pulled his coat tighter and headed east away from the corporate towers toward neighborhoods the board never drove through anymore. His phone buzzed once. He ignored it. 3 blocks later, his chest tightened. Not pain. Pressure. He slowed, leaned briefly against a brick wall, breathing measured, controlled. The doctor's words surfaced uninvited. Aggressive. Limited options. Months, not years. Daniel straightened. He had survived worse. A storefront window caught his eye. Televisions flickered inside, all tuned to the same channel. A news anchor spoke with solemn intensity. His name appeared in a banner below her chin. Whitmore Industries announces leadership transition amid internal concerns. Transition. Another word that pretended to be clean. Daniel turned away before the anchor finished the sentence. By the time he reached the edge of town, the sidewalks narrowed. Streetlights spaced farther apart. A railroad track cut across the road like a scar. Beyond it, a row of tired buildings huddled against the cold. A diner sat on the corner, its neon sign buzzing unevenly. Half the letters worked. The windows were fogged, glowing amber from inside. The kind of place that smelled like coffee and grease and thyme. Daniel stopped. His coat was still fine, his shoes clean. Too clean. He stepped into an alley, fingers working quickly. He removed his watch, slid it into a pocket sewn deep inside the lining. The ring followed. He scuffed his shoes against the concrete, bent down, rubbed his palms into damp grit. When he straightened, the man reflected in the darkened glass looked smaller, slower, less certain. Inside the diner, a bell rang. Conversations dipped, then resumed. A waitress laughed somewhere near the counter. Plates clinked. A radio murmured softly with an old country song. Daniel took 2 steps in before a voice snapped. "Restrooms for customers." The man behind the counter did not look up. He wiped the same spot twice with a rag that had seen better decades. His name tag read Carl. Late 50s, jaw set, a man who measured worth by inconvenience. "I can pay," Daniel said. His voice came out rougher than expected. He did not correct it. Carl finally looked up. His eyes flicked over Daniel's coat, the dirt under his nails, the way he stood too straight to be comfortable. Carl's mouth tightened. "Menu's up there," he said, nodding toward the board. "Coffee's cheap. Don't linger." Daniel nodded once and moved toward an empty booth near the back vinyl-cracked table, wobbling slightly. He sat the seat cold through his coat. From the corner of his eye, he noticed her. She moved with practiced efficiency, balancing a tray on one hip ponytail, swinging with each step. Mid-40s, maybe. Lines at the corners of her eyes that spoke of years spent watching other people eat while she worked. Her name tag read, Lily. She caught Carl's glance, then Daniel's. Something passed between them. A question. A calculation. She did not look away. As she approached, Daniel noticed the details, the faint tremor in her left hand, the scuffed shoes, the way she straightened her shoulders before speaking, as if bracing for impact. "What can I get you?" she asked. "Not warm, not cold. Neutral. Professional." "Coffee," Daniel said. "Black?" She nodded, wrote nothing down, turned away. At the counter, Carl leaned toward her voice, low but sharp. Daniel did not hear the words, but he saw the way her jaw tightened. She nodded once, poured the coffee herself, carried it back. She set the mug down carefully. Steam rose between them. "That's all for now?" she asked. "For now." She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Kitchen's closing soon. I won't be long." She studied him for a second longer than necessary. Then she left. Daniel wrapped his hands around the mug, felt the heat seep into his fingers. He watched the room. The couple arguing softly near the window. The trucker nursing a slice of pie. The way Lily moved, absorbing small slights without reacting, saving her energy for something else. This was not the test he had planned. He had not come looking for mercy, or charity, or gratitude. He had come because something inside him had finally broken, and he needed to know if the world he was leaving behind still recognized a man without his armor. His phone buzzed again in his pocket. This time he looked. A message from Evan. "We need to talk. The board's decision is final. Let's be reasonable." Daniel slid the phone face down. Across the room, Lily stopped beside his booth, refilling the sugar caddy. She did not ask if he wanted more coffee. She simply did it. He reached into his pocket and felt the folded bill there. A single $5 note. Crisp. Intentional. Not yet. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Inside, the radio song ended. Silence rushed in to fill the gap. Daniel lifted the mug to his lips and took a slow sip. For the first time that day, he allowed himself to feel it. The anger, the betrayal, the narrowing of time. He did not know it yet, but the next words spoken at this table would change everything he thought he was leaving behind. The spoon slipped from Lily's fingers and clinked softly against the saucer. She caught it before it rolled, glanced toward the counter, then back at the man in the booth. He had not reacted. He sat still, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes lowered to the surface of the coffee as if listening to something only he could hear. "You okay?" she asked, quieter this time. Daniel looked up. For a split second, something sharp flashed behind his eyes. Not confusion, not weakness. Control tightly reined in. "Fine," he said. "Just cold." Lily nodded. Cold she understood. Cold was manageable. Cold had solutions. She reached into the pocket of her apron, pulled out a folded napkin, and slid it across the table toward him. Inside were 2 packets of sugar and a tiny plastic creamer she had saved from a table that left early. "Helps take the edge off," she said. "Sometimes." He studied the napkin as if it carried more weight than it should. "Thank you." At the counter, Carl watched the exchange with a frown. He leaned back, arms crossed, eyes narrowing. Lily felt it in her spine. She straightened, picked up her tray, and moved away before he could say anything. Daniel added the sugar, stirred slowly. The spoon made small, controlled circles. He drank again, longer this time. The bell over the door rang. 2 men came in, laughing too loudly, jackets unzipped against the cold. They smelled of diesel and sweat. One glanced toward Daniel's booth, then looked away uninterested. Lily returned to the counter, refilled a coffee pot, wiped her hands on a towel that never quite came clean. Carl leaned toward her, voice low. "Make it quick," he said. "I don't want problems tonight." "He's not causing any," Lily replied. Carl snorted. "They never do. Until they do." She met his eyes, held them. Carl looked away first. Daniel watched it all from the corner of his vision. He saw the way Lily's shoulders tensed, the way she exhaled only after Carl turned his back. It was a familiar posture, one he had worn himself decades earlier in rooms where saying the wrong thing meant losing everything. He reached into his coat pocket and felt the $5 bill again. He imagined setting it on the table, imagined the reaction. Gratitude, relief, or perhaps embarrassment. The test he had used before. Simple, efficient. But something about Lily made him pause. She moved through the diner with quiet competence, but there was no softness in her eyes that suggested she was waiting to be rescued. No hunger for validation. She did her job because it needed doing. The radio crackled back to life, a weather report murmuring about an incoming front, snow by morning. Daniel glanced toward the window. Snow meant colder nights, fewer options. Lily returned this time with a small bowl of soup. Chicken noodle. Steam curled upward, carrying the smell of pepper and onions. "I didn't order this," Daniel said. "Kitchen had extra," Lily replied without missing a beat. "Better than tossing it." He knew the lie when he heard it, the same way he recognized one in a quarterly report. Casual, polite, casual. Designed to move past resistance. "I can't pay," he said. She set the bowl down anyway. "Eat." The word was firm, not unkind. A boundary disguised as kindness. Daniel looked at her hands. The skin was rough nails trimmed short. A thin scar ran across her knuckle old. Work earned. Why, he asked. Lily hesitated, just long enough to consider whether honesty would cost her. Then she shrugged. "Because someone fed me once when I didn't ask." He waited. My husband? She continued quieter. Before he passed. Factory shut down. We were down to whatever change we could find in the couch. A woman at church dropped off a casserole. Didn't stay, didn't make a speech, just left it on the porch. She straightened. You don't forget things like that. Daniel felt the words settle somewhere deep. He picked up the spoon and tasted the soup. It was good, simple, hot. Across the diner, Carl cleared his throat loudly. Lily, she turned. Yeah. Clock's running, he said. Wrap it up. She nodded, then looked back at Daniel. Take your time. Carl's jaw tightened. He turned away. Daniel finished the soup slowly. Each spoonful grounded him, pulled him back into his body. When he set the bowl aside, he reached into his pocket and took out the $5 bill. He placed it on the table flat, precise. For the soup, he said. Lily looked at the bill, then at his shoes. The soles were damp edges frayed. She imagined the snow outside, imagined him walking into it with wet feet. She did not touch the money. You should keep that, she said. Daniel raised an eyebrow. I offered. I know. She folded her arms, not defensive, just steady. You'll need it more than I do tonight. He leaned back slightly. You don't know that. She met his gaze. I know enough. There it was. Not pity, not performance. Judgment quiet and grounded in lived experience. Daniel felt something shift. Not break. A line. I have my pride, he said. So do I, Lily replied. That's why I'm not taking it. Silence stretched between them. The radio hummed. A fork scraped somewhere near the window. Daniel picked up the bill, turned it over once between his fingers. What if I insist? Then I'll insist back, Lily said. And we'll be at a standstill. A corner of his mouth twitched. Not a smile. Something close. He slid the bill back toward her. Then let me insist this way, he said. Hold on to it, in case I come back tomorrow. She shook her head. I'll be here either way. She pushed the bill toward him again, this time closing his fingers around it. Her touch was brief, warm, deliberate. Use it to get dry socks, she said. Snow's coming. The words landed with unexpected force. Not because of their content, but because of their certainty. She was not guessing. She was planning for him. Daniel closed his hand around the bill. His throat tightened. Thank you, he said, and meant something deeper than gratitude. Lily nodded once and stepped away, giving him space to leave without spectacle. At the counter, Carl watched Daniel stand. He stiffened, ready with a comment that never came. Daniel paused by the door. He turned, caught Lily's eye. She was wiping down a table, movements methodical, already moving on. Ma'am, he said. She looked up. Yeah. You have a good heart. She shrugged. Just doing my job. Daniel nodded, then stepped out into the night. The cold hit him immediately, sharp and clean. He pulled his coat tighter, the $5 bill warm in his pocket. Across the street, a dark sedan idled, engine low, lights off. The driver straightened when he saw Daniel. Daniel raised a hand, signaling him to wait. He stood there for a moment, looking back at the diner. At the fogged windows, the flickering neon. The woman inside who had just altered the trajectory of something far larger than she could see. Inside, Lily finished wiping the table and glanced toward the door. The booth was empty. The coffee mug still warm. She picked it up, carried it to the sink, and went back to work, unaware that somewhere down the road, a man who had just lost everything was about to decide what and who truly deserved to inherit it. Daniel did not sleep that night. The sedan carried him away from the diner in silence, tires hissing against wet pavement as snow began to drift down in thin, uncertain flakes. He sat in the back seat, hands folded, eyes fixed on the passing streetlights. Each one slid across the glass like a brief confession, then vanished. The driver glanced at him once in the rear-view mirror. Home, Sir Daniel shook his head. Office. The word tasted strange. It had always meant safety. Control. Tonight it felt like a courtroom after the verdict. The building was nearly empty when they arrived. Security recognized him, stood straighter, opened doors with hands that trembled just enough to betray the news they had already heard. Daniel acknowledged none of it. He walked the halls alone, footsteps echoing against marble floors he had chosen decades earlier because they were durable, not beautiful. In his office, the lights came on automatically. The room revealed itself piece by piece: desk, shelves, framed photographs he had stopped seeing years ago. His wife younger, laughing at a picnic table. His children small, standing in front of a house that no longer belonged to any of them in spirit. Daniel removed his coat and draped it over the chair. He stood there for a long moment, then reached into the pocket and took out the $5 bill. He placed it on the desk, smoothing it with 2 fingers. That bill had more weight than the entire board meeting. It had not been given freely. It had been refused. And in that refusal, something had been revealed that no quarterly report had ever captured. He sat down slowly and reached for the phone. It rang twice before Margaret answered. Her voice was careful, already armored. Daniel, it's late. I know. A pause. You shouldn't be alone right now. He almost smiled. I'm not. Silence. Then, what do you need? I need you here in the morning, he said. And I need the trust documents. She exhaled. We already have a living trust. I need a new one. Another pause, longer this time. Daniel, I'm of sound mind, he said evenly. I've already scheduled the evaluation. Independent. 2 physicians. Her voice softened. What happened tonight? Daniel looked at the bill again. I was reminded what value looks like when it isn't for sale. Margaret did not press. She knew when questions were invitations and when they were warnings. I'll be there, she said. First thing. When the call ended, Daniel leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. The diner returned to him in fragments. The steam rising from the soup, Lily's hands closing around his fingers. The way she had looked at him, not past him. He opened his eyes and reached for a legal pad. His handwriting was still firm, though slower than it once had been. He wrote names, crossed them out, wrote them again. Ownership, control, stewardship, words he had used interchangeably for too long. Near dawn, his phone buzzed again. This time he answered without looking. You should have called, Evan said, voice tight. The board meeting blindsided us. Daniel said nothing. We're trying to protect you, Evan continued. There are concerns, your health, your judgment. Daniel closed his eyes. You voted without me. For you. You took my vote. Silence crackled on the line. This isn't personal, Evan said finally. It's business. Daniel opened his eyes. The city outside was pale with morning. Snow coated the streets, softening the edges of everything. No, he said quietly. This is personal. You just forgot that. He ended the call. By the time the sun rose, Daniel had made his decision. Not impulsively, not emotionally. Deliberately. The way he had always done everything that mattered. At the diner, Lily arrived early, shaking snow from her coat before hanging it behind the counter. The radio was already on low. Carl was in a worse mood than usual, grumbling about delivery delays and weather. You're late, he said without looking up. I'm not, Lily replied, checking the clock. I'm on time. Carl scoffed but let it go. The morning crowd trickled in. Regulars, familiar faces. Lily moved between tables, pouring coffee, listening to complaints about roads and joints and the price of heating oil. Life resumed its rhythm, indifferent to the night before. Mid-morning, a man in a wool coat stepped inside, brushing snow from his shoulders. He did not look like someone who belonged there. Too polished, too deliberate. Lily noticed him immediately. He scanned the room, then approached the counter. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm looking for Lily." Carl straightened. "You found her." The man smiled politely. "I'm Thomas Hale." Lily frowned slightly. "Can I help you?" "I believe you already have," he said. "I'm here on behalf of a client." Something in his tone shifted the air. Not threatening. Serious. Carl leaned in. "If this is about a bill or—" "It's not," Thomas said calmly, eyes never leaving Lily. "May we speak privately?" Lily hesitated, then nodded toward the back hallway. 2 minutes. They stepped aside the noise of the diner, muffled behind them. "My client was here last night," Thomas said. "He wanted me to thank you." Lily's stomach tightened. "Is he okay?" "He is," Thomas replied. "Cold, but well cared for." She exhaled relief quick and unexpected. "He also wanted me to ask," Thomas continued, "if you would be willing to meet with him again." Lily studied the man's face. There was no condescension there, no pity, just intent. "I work," she said. "I don't have time for—" "This wouldn't take long," Thomas said. "And you would be compensated for your time." Her jaw set. "I don't take money for being decent." A flicker of something like respect crossed his expression. He anticipated that. She waited. "He asked me to tell you," Thomas said carefully, "that sometimes the most important conversations happen after the test is over." Lily thought of the $5 bill, of the way the man had looked at her when she pushed it back, when she asked. "Tonight," Thomas said. "After your shift." She nodded once. "Tell him I'll come by. For coffee. Nothing else." Thomas smiled. "That will be more than enough." When they returned to the counter, Carl stared at Lily, suspicious. "What was that about?" "Nothing," she said, reaching for the coffee pot. "Just someone saying thank you." Carl snorted. "For what?" She poured a mug, steady as ever. "For seeing someone." Across town, Daniel watched the snow fall from his office window as Margaret arrived, documents in hand. He did not turn when she entered. "I met her lawyer," Margaret said carefully. Daniel smiled faintly. "Good." She studied him. "You're certain?" He turned, then eyes clear, resolved. "I've never been more certain of anything." Margaret nodded. "Then let's do this properly." Outside, the snow continued to fall quiet and relentless, settling over a city that had no idea a single refused $5 bill was already reshaping its future. The conference room smelled faintly of lemon polish and old paper. Lily noticed it the moment she stepped inside, the way some rooms announced power before a word was spoken. The table was long, dark wood, scarred by decades of decisions. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the river gray and swollen with snowmelt. It was early evening, the sky already dimming, the city settling into a quieter rhythm. Daniel Whitmore stood at the window with his back to her. He had changed. The coat was gone, the posture straighter. Not younger exactly, but assembled. A man who had put his armor back on piece by piece. "Thank you for coming," he said without turning. Lily closed the door behind her, the soft click echoing too loudly. "Your lawyer said coffee." Daniel turned. His eyes met hers, steady, unreadable. "I said conversation. Coffee felt like a promise I could keep." A side table held a pot, 2 mugs, steam rising gently. No assistants, no guards, just them. She did not sit. "If this is about money, I told your friend already." "It isn't," Daniel said. "At least not the way you think." He gestured toward the chair across from him. She hesitated, then sat hands folded in her lap. The room made her feel smaller than she was. She hated that. Daniel poured the coffee himself, careful, deliberate. He slid a mug toward her. She did not touch it. "I owe you an explanation," he said. "You don't owe me anything," Lily replied. "You ate soup. You stayed warm. That was it." Daniel's mouth tightened slightly. It wasn't. He sat opposite her close enough that she could see the faint tremor in his left hand when he rested it on the table. Not weakness. Restraint. "I didn't walk into that diner by accident," he said. "And I didn't offer you that $5 bill out of gratitude." Her eyes narrowed. "Then why?" "Because I needed to know who people are when they think nothing is at stake." The words hung there, heavy, dangerous. Lily leaned back. "So this was a test?" "Yes." She laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Congratulations." "I passed." Daniel did not flinch. "I failed." That stopped her. "You failed," she repeated. "I spent my life believing I understood value," he said. "I believed efficiency was morality, that outcomes justified behavior, that people were variables." He looked down at the table at the grain of the wood. "Last night a woman with every reason to take what she could afford to refuse reminded me I had been wrong." Lily shook her head slowly. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to walk into someone's life, pretend to be something you're not, then tell them they taught you a lesson." Daniel met her gaze. "You're right. I don't." Silence stretched. Outside a horn blared, distant and brief. "Then why am I here?" Lily asked. Daniel inhaled, measured. "Because I'm dying." The words landed without drama. No emphasis. Just fact. Her breath caught before she could stop it. "I'm sorry." "I don't want sympathy," he said. "I want to be clear." He reached into his jacket and removed a folder, thick, heavy. He placed it on the table but did not open it. "I lost control of my company yesterday," he said. "Not legally, strategically. My children orchestrated it." Lily's jaw tightened. "That's not my business." "It will be," Daniel said quietly. Her eyes flicked to the folder, then back to him. "No. I haven't asked yet." "You're about to." "Yes." She stood. The chair scraped back sharp in the still room. "I don't know what kind of games you people play, but I don't belong here. I serve food. I raise my kid. That's my life." Daniel remained seated. "I know." She turned toward the door. "Lily," he said. She paused, hand on the handle. "I didn't choose you because you were kind," he continued. "I chose you because you were consistent." She looked back, eyes hard. "My children are generous," Daniel said. "When cameras are on, when tax deductions are involved, when applause is guaranteed, you were decent when it cost you." "That doesn't make me special," Lily said. "That makes me tired." Daniel nodded. "Exactly." He opened the folder. Papers neatly arranged, legal language dense and precise. She did not step closer. "I am restructuring my estate," he said, "through a trust, independent oversight, professional management." She shook her head. "Stop. I am not asking you to run a company," Daniel said. "I am not asking you to become someone else." "Then what are you asking?" "I am asking you to be a counterweight." The word settled between them. "My children believe power exists to protect itself," Daniel said. "They will burn everything to keep control. Employees, communities. The company's soul if it has one." Lily laughed again, quieter this time. "You think I can stop that?" "I think you can slow it," Daniel said. "I think you can see it when it happens. I think you can say no." She stared at him. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Daniel replied, "and I intend to know more. Background checks, interviews, time." He closed the folder. Nothing happens tonight. Her shoulders eased just a fraction. I won't make you an offer you can't refuse, he said. I will make one you can walk away from. Lily looked down at her hands. The scar on her knuckle. The faint tremble she worked so hard to hide. And if I say no, she asked. Then I find someone else, Daniel said. And I live with that. She considered him. The man who had been reduced to a stranger in his own empire. The man who had sat in her booth and accepted soup without argument. The man who had not taken the $5 bill. What about your kids? She asked. Daniel's jaw tightened. They will fight. Hard. Yes. And you're okay with that? No, he said. But I'm prepared. She walked back to the table and sat again slower this time. I don't want your money, she said. I don't want your name. I don't want my kid growing up thinking everything has a price. Daniel nodded. Neither do I. What happens to me if I say yes? She asked. You lose privacy, he said. You gain enemies. You will be doubted, investigated, misrepresented. She snorted softly. So nothing new. He allowed himself a small smile. And what happens to them? She asked. Daniel leaned forward. They learned that control is not ownership. Lily reached for the coffee, at last took a sip. It was bitter, strong, honest. You should know something, she said. I don't bend. That's why you're here, Daniel replied. They sat in silence for a long moment, the city breathing around them. Somewhere below, traffic surged, then thinned. I'll listen, Lily said finally. That's it. No promises. Daniel nodded, relief flickering briefly before he mastered it. That's all I'm asking for tonight. She stood, pulling on her coat. I need to get home. He stood as well. Of course. At the door, she paused. One more thing. Yes, if this hurts. My daughter. Lily said, voice low. Dangerous. I walk. I don't care how powerful you are. Daniel met her gaze, unblinking. If this hurts your daughter, I deserve whatever happens next. She searched his face, then nodded once and left. Daniel remained in the room after the door closed, the folder still unopened on the table. Outside, the river moved steadily, indifferent to plans and promises. For the first time in years, Daniel Whitmore felt something like fear. Not of losing control. Of being right. The envelope arrived 3 days later, thick and unmarked, waiting on Lily's kitchen table when she came home from work. She stood over it for a long moment, coat still on, keys clenched in her hand. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the rhythmic wheeze of the heater kicking on. Her daughter's backpack lay slumped against the wall, homework half visible. Normal life holding its breath. Lily did not open the envelope right away. She washed her hands first, changed out of her uniform, checked on her daughter Emma, asleep on her side with one arm flung over a stuffed dog that had lost one eye years ago. Lily watched her chest rise and fall, counted 3 steady breaths, then closed the bedroom door. Only then did she sit. Inside the envelope were no checks, no dramatic numbers, just paper, clean, dense, legal. A cover letter on firm letterhead. Plain language. No flourish. This is not an offer. This is information. Lily read it twice. The documents outlined a structure, not a promise. A trust with layered oversight, independent auditors, a board insulated from family interference, a role defined narrowly, deliberately. Oversight authority without operational control, a vote in moments that mattered. Silence when it did not. She flipped the page. A clause highlighted in yellow. No compensation for the first 12 months. Lily exhaled slow and sharp. Of course. She kept reading. Another clause. Exit without penalty at any time. Another. No public announcement until after Daniel Whitmore's passing. She closed the folder and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. A crack ran from the light fixture toward the corner, thin and persistent. She had meant to report it months ago. At the diner, Carl noticed her distraction immediately. "You're burning the toast," he snapped. Lily scraped it into the trash without comment and started over. The morning crowd came and went. Coffee refills, plates clattering, complaints about knees and gas prices. She smiled when required, nodded when necessary. Inside, her thoughts ran in tight, controlled circles. By mid-afternoon, the first call came. Unknown number. She let it ring. The second came 10 minutes later, then a third. On her break, she checked the voicemail. "Ms. Carter, this is Julia Whitmore. I believe we need to talk." The voice was smooth, female, confident in a way that assumed access. Lily deleted the message. That night, Daniel watched the security footage from his office, not of Lily, but of his own front gate. 2 cars idled longer than necessary before pulling away. A man lingered near the sidewalk, phone raised, pretending to check messages while angling the camera toward the building. Daniel's head of security stood beside him, arms crossed. "They're testing boundaries." Daniel nodded. "Let them. You want us to intervene?" "Not yet." Across town, Lily tucked Emma into bed and sat beside her until sleep came easy. When she returned to the kitchen, the phone rang again. This time, she answered. "Yes, Ms. Carter," the woman said. "Julia Whitmore." "I know." A pause, then a soft laugh. "Good. That saves time." "I don't have much," Lily replied. "Neither does my father," Julia said. "Which is why we should be honest." Lily said nothing. "My father is not well," Julia continued. "He's making decisions based on sentiment, temporary impulses." "He seemed clear to me," Lily said. Another pause. The laugh did not return. "He is being manipulated," Julia said carefully. "And you are being placed in an impossible position." "I wasn't placed anywhere," Lily replied. "I was asked, and you said yes. I said I would listen." Julia sighed as if indulging a child. "Listen to me now. This will not end well for you." Lily felt something harden in her chest. "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning," Julia said. "My family does not lose gracefully." Lily looked at the calendar on the wall. A school fundraiser circled in red. A doctor's appointment underlined twice. "I don't want anything from you," Lily said. "And I don't owe you anything. You owe us clarity." Julia snapped, the polish cracking. "You have no idea what you're stepping into." Lily smiled, though Julia could not see it. "Funny. People say that right before they realize they've misjudged someone." She ended the call. The next morning, a man waited near the diner's entrance when Lily arrived. Late 40s, clean jacket, too alert. He stepped in her path. "Lily Carter." "Yes. Name's Robert Hale," he said, flashing a badge too quickly. "Private investigator, not law enforcement. Just a few questions." She glanced past him at the street, then back. "I'm late for work. This won't take long." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "If you have questions, send them to my lawyer." He blinked. "You have a lawyer?" "Yes." "Who?" She smiled politely. "That information costs more than you're offering." She stepped around him and went inside. Carl stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. "What was that about?" "Nothing," Lily said. "Coffee's ready." That afternoon, Daniel received a report. Phone calls made, messages left. "A private investigator spotted?" "The usual escalation." "She hasn't responded," his security chief said. Daniel nodded. "She won't." "You sure this is fair to her?" the man asked. Daniel looked out the window, jaw set. "No." That evening, Lily sat at her kitchen table again, the folder open. She read every page, this time slowly. She marked questions in the margins. She circled words she did not like. Control, authority, fiduciary. She imagined Emma at 15, at 25, watching her mother navigate rooms full of people who believed she did not belong. The thought did not scare her. What scared her was the alternative. A system unchanged, a power vacuum filled by people who treated lives like line items. She picked up the phone and dialed the number on the cover letter. Thomas answered on the second ring. "I have conditions," Lily said. "I assumed you would." "No public exposure," she continued. "No pictures of my daughter, no press near her school. Ever." "Agreed." "I don't speak for your client," Lily said. "I speak with him. Directly. I'll arrange it." "And if this turns into a circus," Lily said, voice steady, "I'm gone." There was a pause. "Understood." She hung up and leaned back, closing her eyes. The heater rattled. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. Across the city, Daniel stood alone in his office again, the $5 bill framed now not as a relic, but as a reminder. He looked at it then at the city beyond the glass. For the first time since the board meeting, he allowed himself to believe the fight ahead would be worth the cost. Not because he would win, but because someone else might finally have a chance to choose what winning meant. The first headline hit before Lily had finished her morning shift. She saw it on a customer's phone, the screen tilted just enough for the words to catch her eye while she refilled a mug. Whitmore heir battle brews amid health concerns. The photo beneath it showed Daniel Whitmore leaving a building, jaw-tight, coat collar turned up. No mention of her. Not yet. She kept pouring. By noon, the calls had started again. Different numbers. Same silence when she answered. She stopped picking up after the fourth. At 2:15 in the afternoon, Thomas Hale walked into the diner. This time, he didn't ask for privacy. He sat at the counter, ordered coffee, waited until Lily finished with a table before speaking. "They're moving faster than expected," he said quietly. Lily slid him the mug. "They always do." Thomas studied her face. "Your name hasn't surfaced, but it will." She nodded once. "I assumed." "They're questioning Daniel's capacity," he continued. "Pushing for an emergency review. If they succeed, the trust freezes." And everything slows down," Thomas said. "Months, maybe longer." Lily wiped her hands on a towel. "That's their play." "Yes." She leaned on the counter, lowering her voice. "What's his—" Thomas hesitated. "He wants to accelerate." Her eyes flicked up. Meaning he's prepared to reveal the restructuring early, including your involvement." Lily felt the weight of that land in her chest. "No, that was my response," Thomas said. "But he asked me to ask you." She straightened. "Tell him absolutely not." Thomas nodded. "I will, but you should know what that means." She waited. "They'll look elsewhere," he said. "Friends, family, anyone close enough to pressure." Lily thought of Emma, of the school drop-off line, the quiet routines she had built like walls. "They already tried," she said. Thomas's brow furrowed. "How?" Private investigator, Lily replied. "A phone call from his daughter." Thomas exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry." She shrugged. "It was coming." When Thomas left, Lily finished her shift in silence. Carl noticed. He did not comment. That evening, Lily picked Emma up from after-school care earlier than usual. The woman at the desk smiled too brightly, asked too many questions. Lily answered politely, strapped Emma into the car, checked the rearview mirror twice before pulling away. At home, she locked the door behind them and leaned against it for a moment, eyes closed. "Mom?" Emma asked. "I'm okay," Lily said, forcing a smile. "Just tired." They made grilled cheese for dinner. Emma talked about a science project about a girl in her class who cried during math. Lily listened, nodded, anchored herself to the normalcy. After Emma went to bed, Lily sat at the kitchen table and opened her laptop. She searched Daniel Whitmore's name. Articles, commentary, speculation. Then she searched Julia Whitmore. Philanthropy galas, board appointments, quotes about legacy and stewardship that rang hollow now that Lily knew the voice behind them. She closed the laptop. Across the city, Daniel sat with Margaret and two physicians in a quiet office lights, low windows dark. The evaluation took hours. Questions designed to confuse, to trap, to provoke emotional response. Daniel answered each one with measured clarity. Voice, steady memory, intact. He recited dates, named executives, explained strategies, admitted mistakes. When it was over, one of the doctors leaned back. "You're angry." "Yes," Daniel said. "That doesn't mean you're impaired," the doctor replied. Daniel smiled faintly. Margaret gathered the papers. "This will help," she said, "but it won't stop them." Daniel nodded. It was never going to. As they left, Margaret hesitated. "Are you certain about Lily?" Daniel did not slow. "More than I was about my own children." Margaret watched him for a moment, then followed. The next morning, Lily noticed the car before she noticed the man, parked across the street from Emma's school. Engine running, windows tinted. Her pulse quickened, but her face stayed neutral. She parked, walked Emma to the gate, kissed her forehead. "Love you," Emma said. "Love you more," Lily replied. As she turned back toward the car, the man stepped out. "Ms. Carter," he said. She stopped, keeping distance. "You're blocking a crosswalk." He glanced down, stepped aside. "I just want to talk." "Get in line," Lily said. He smiled thinly. "My employer would prefer cooperation." "My employer is a diner," Lily replied, "and I'm late." "This doesn't have to be adversarial," he said. "You're in over your head." She looked at him then, really looked. Mid-30s, expensive suit, trying to look casual. A man who had never been told no by anyone who mattered. "You know what you people never understand," Lily said quietly. "I've lived underwater my whole life. Pressure doesn't scare me." His smile faltered. "You should think about your daughter." Lily's voice dropped. "You should leave. Now." Something in her tone made him hesitate. He stepped back, hands raised slightly. "No offense intended." She waited until he got back into the car and drove off before she exhaled. That afternoon, Lily didn't go back to the diner. She took the rest of the day off for the first time in years and drove to a quiet park by the river. She sat on a bench, coat pulled tight, watching the water move. Her phone rang. Daniel's number. She answered. "They came near my kid." Silence on the other end, heavy and immediate. Where Daniel asked. "School," Lily said. "Not inside. Not yet." Daniel's voice hardened. "I'll put protection in place." "No," Lily said. "You'll back off." A pause. "Lily, I told you the terms," she said. "I don't get dragged into your war. Either you slow this down, or I'm out." Another pause. Longer this time. Daniel spoke carefully. "If I slow down, they gain leverage. And if you don't," Lily said, "you lose me." The line was quiet except for the faint sound of his breathing. "You're asking me to choose," Daniel said. "Yes." He closed his eyes, leaning back in his chair. For years, choices had been framed for him by urgency and ego. This one was different. "I'll delay the announcement," he said finally. "I'll take the hit." Lily's shoulders loosened slightly. "Thank you." "This puts me at risk," Daniel added. She did not soften her voice. "Welcome to my life." A sound escaped him, not quite a laugh. "Fair." They ended the call without pleasantries. That night, Daniel released a statement through his attorneys. No changes to governance. No immediate restructuring. A reaffirmation of stability. The markets reacted mildly. His children raged privately. Julia threw a glass against the wall of her penthouse, the sound sharp and final. "He's protecting her," she hissed. "He's protecting himself," her brother replied. "And she's the shield." Back in her apartment, Lily sat on the edge of Emma's bed, watching her sleep. The city outside was quiet lights blinking like distant stars. Lily knew the calm would not last. But for the first time, she also knew something else. Daniel Whitmore was no longer the most dangerous person in the room, and neither was she underestimated. The city had been whitewashed overnight. Snow coated the streets in soft gray, muffling the usual hum of morning traffic. Lily pulled her coat tighter scarf tucked under her chin and walked past the shuttered shops toward the diner, the envelope from Daniel still folded in her pocket. Her hands itched to open it again, though she already knew what it contained: clarity, responsibility, danger. Inside the diner smelled of frying bacon and burnt coffee, as if nothing outside had changed. Carl was already muttering about the weather and a delayed shipment of eggs. Lily nodded politely, set her bag down, and started her shift. Every step felt heavier than usual, weighed by the knowledge of what was coming. A few minutes into the morning rush, the bell above the door jingled sharply. Two men in dark coats stepped inside, scanning the room quickly before settling their gaze on Lily. She froze coffee pot in hand, heart tight, but her face remained composed. Recognition dawned. These were not ordinary customers. One of them, taller, lean eyes, cold, walked straight up to the counter. "Ms. Carter," he said. "Thomas Hale." Lily set the coffee pot down slowly. "I told you yesterday I'm not available for anything beyond my work here." "Sir said it's necessary," Thomas replied, voice low, almost pleading. "He wants to speak with you." Lily's eyes flicked toward the booths, the few regulars pretending not to notice. "And I told him no. Now leave." Thomas exhaled. "I can't do that. Not until you hear him out." Her jaw tightened. "Then I'll hear him here. Now. No one leaves." The man hesitated, then nodded. "It's your choice." Minutes later, the diner door jingled again. Lily glanced up. Daniel Whitmore stepped in snow, clinging to his coat gloves, removed fingers, flexing like he had measured every motion before entering. Eyes sharp, scanning the room before landing on her. He moved with the quiet precision of someone accustomed to being in control, yet careful not to alarm anyone else. Lily met his gaze steady calm. She did not move toward him. Carl watched from the counter, suspicion etched across his face. Daniel ignored him. He stopped a few feet away from the counter near a table by the window and waited. "I said I'd listen," Lily said, finally lowering her voice. "I did not say yes to anything else." Daniel nodded. "I know. I'm not here to make promises." "Then, what are you here for?" Her tone held the edge of exhaustion, mixed with controlled patience. She had been through worse than curious billionaires. She could handle this. He glanced at the window, watching a thin plume of snow rise from the street. "I'm here to make sure you understand the scope, the responsibility, the stakes." Her hands rested on the counter. "Then speak. Quickly." Daniel took a deep breath. "Last week I formalized the trust. Independent oversight. Board of directors insulated from interference. Fiduciary responsibilities clearly defined. You are identified as a key part of the structure." Lily's stomach tightened. "Key part. I'm a waitress. I pour coffee. I wipe tables." "Not for long," Daniel said. "You will not run day-to-day operations. You will not sign checks. You will not manage employees. Your influence is strategic, advisory, decisive when it matters. You will have the authority to act as a counterbalance to those who would abuse control." She swallowed dry. "Counterbalance. Your judgment," he said simply. "Your choices. Your moral compass. It matters more than you know. Lily's fingers clenched the edge of the counter. And if I refuse? Daniel tilted his head slightly. Then the trust proceeds without you. You walk away. No obligations. But the people it protects will be left vulnerable. She turned to Carl, who stared at her with wide eyes, unsure whether to intervene. She shook her head and focused back on Daniel. You're asking me to carry a burden for strangers. Adults who have never been taught what responsibility means. Yes, he said. And I've calculated the risk. You are consistent. You are reliable. You are principled. Lily exhaled slowly. I have a daughter. She comes first. Nothing I do can compromise her safety. Which is why we take precautions, Daniel said. Security legal buffers protocols. Your involvement is measured protected. You are not exposed unless you choose to be. She paused, then laughed quietly, bitterly. Measured. Protected. You make it sound like a game. Like I won't be dragged into lawsuits, media harassment. Daniel met her eyes, unwavering. It will come, and you will endure. That is part of the role. Lily's hand tightened on the counter. You don't know what my life is like. I do, Daniel said softly. Enough. You've been managing chaos for years, balancing bills, schedules, emergencies, tempers. You've been preparing for this without realizing it. She stared at him incredulous. That's absurd. No, he said. It's precise, and you have a choice. Not whether to act responsibly, you already do that, but whether to step into the formal role. The diner fell into a hush around them, unnoticed by the regulars who drank coffee and nibbled pancakes. Daniel's presence alone seemed to flatten space. Time slowed. I'm not here to manipulate you, he said. You decide your level of engagement. I provide the framework. You provide judgment. She leaned back against the counter, shoulders, rigid jaw tight. And the people who want to take the company from you. They will act, Daniel said. They will challenge, harass, litigate, try to destabilize everything. You must be ready to say no, to stand firm. You will not be alone, but you will be visible. Lily's mind raced. She imagined the boardrooms, the financial reports, the cold eyes of people who believed money equaled authority. She thought of Emma, of the quiet mornings when she prayed the bills would be covered. This was another type of battle. Not knives, not fists. Strategy, ethics, survival. I don't know if I can do that, she said honestly. I'm not trained for this. I don't speak their language. I don't know the law well enough. You know enough, Daniel said. Enough to act when the line is crossed. Enough to observe. Enough to advise. You already wield influence over those you care about. Now you will wield it formally. She looked down at her hands, then at the $5 bill still folded in her pocket. The first test, the principle that had brought them both here. Integrity, choice, power not given, but recognized. And if I say yes, she said finally. Voice steady. How do I protect my daughter, my home, my life, outside all this? Daniel placed a hand on the counter near hers, not touching her, just close enough that the space between them seemed intentional. Measures are in place. You have veto power over disclosures. You have security. You have discretion. You are not entering a war unarmed. She exhaled. Long, hard, relief mixed with apprehension. You understand the implications, he said, and you still choose to participate? Yes, she said. I will participate on my terms. Daniel nodded. Then we begin the transition. Tonight we establish the communications protocol. Tomorrow you review the first set of documents. We move slowly, measured, protected. Lily closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, the room seemed less imposing. The shadows on the walls softened the tables, and chairs became objects, not barriers. She could see the faint outline of the river through the windows, gray, steady, indifferent, flowing past the city that would soon notice her presence, whether it wanted to or not. "You will have support," Daniel said. "Legal counsel, security advisors. No one can take what we are building unless we allow it." "I know," Lily said. "I just hope that's enough." He studied her. "It will be. For now, you listen. You observe. You act when necessary. The rest unfolds." A quiet hum rose outside as the first snowplows began to move. The light faded from the diner windows, leaving the interior warm, isolated like a bubble in the city. Lily watched Daniel gather his coat gloves and papers. Each movement deliberate, precise, unhurried. A man accustomed to planning, executing, and controlling outcomes. He paused at the door. One last thing he said. "Trust is fragile. Discretion is essential. If anyone learns of your involvement prematurely, it could compromise everything." "I understand," she said. "And I won't let it happen." He nodded once. Then he was gone, leaving the diner quiet, the only sound the faint drip of melting snow from the eaves outside. Lily stood for a long moment listening to the silence. Then she reached into her pocket, unfolded the $5 bill, looked at it, and smiled faintly. It had started as a test. Now it was a responsibility, a burden, a shield. And for the first time in years, Lily Carter felt like someone had recognized what she was capable of. The snowstorm intensified overnight, coating streets and cars in thick white layers, making the city look unfamiliar and fragile. Lily woke early, Emma still asleep under a blanket pulled tight around her shoulders, and she felt the weight of the day ahead pressing immediately against her chest. The envelope from Daniel was still in her bag, folded, but ever present, a reminder that normal life had shifted irreversibly. She dressed quickly, scarf wrapped high, and stepped outside. The cold bit through her coat, pricking at her cheeks, but she welcomed it. Focus demanded clarity, and clarity demanded movement. The diner smelled of toasted bread and coffee when she arrived, the air thick with warmth and the murmur of early patrons. Carl was wiping a counter near the entrance, scowling at a cracked window that rattled in the wind. Lily nodded without speaking, and moved to the back, careful not to draw attention. Her mind was already parsing the day, the calls, the emails, the hidden eyes she felt tracking her every move. A subtle knock echoed from the alley entrance, barely audible over the wind. She paused, hand on the coffee pot. Two men stepped inside, coats dusted with snow eyes, scanning quickly before settling on her. One carried a small notebook. The other just stood, hands in pockets. Lily did not flinch. "Ms. Carter," the first man said, voice low. "I'm Mark Davis. My associate is here to deliver a message from Mr. Whitmore." She nodded slowly. "I've received his message. You're early." He tilted his head. "Instructions changed. He's requesting a face-to-face before your shift. 10 minutes. Lily set the coffee pot down and met their gaze evenly. "We meet here?" "No," Mark said. "Private location. Nearby. Safe." She considered it, hand tightening around the edge of the counter. "I have a daughter." "Which is why we scheduled security discreetly," the man said. His tone held no malice, only the weight of procedure. "She won't be exposed." Lily exhaled slowly. "Lead the way." The street was quiet, snow muffling the usual hum of traffic. They walked a block, turned into a narrow alley, and entered a small, unassuming office. Warmth hit her, immediately scented faintly of cedar and paper. A single lamp illuminated the room, a table, 2 chairs, and a soft rug that seemed out of place amid the concrete and snow. Daniel Whitmore stood near the window, coat off, hands clasped behind his back. His expression was measured, serious, older but steadier than she remembered. He gestured toward a chair. "Sit," he said. Lily hesitated, then did. her coat still dusted with snow, gloves in hand, eyes scanning the room. Nothing else moved. "Thank you for coming," Daniel said. "I know it's inconvenient." "I came because you asked," she replied. "But make this quick." He nodded. "We have limited time, and many things to clarify." She folded her hands on her lap. "Start." Daniel opened a folder on the table. Documents gleamed under the lamp. "This is the trust as it stands. Independent oversight, fiduciary boundaries, emergency protocols. You are identified as a guardian for specific decisions, not operational control. Your role is advisory, authoritative when ethics or safety are in question." Lily's eyes narrowed. "And the rest protected. Contingency plans, legal buffers, security measures. I did not design this to place you in harm's way unnecessarily." She tilted her head. "Harm in what sense?" Daniel leaned forward. "Corporate aggression, family interference, media scrutiny, attempts to destabilize decisions. These are inevitable." "I understand the scope," she said. "I don't know if I accept it, but I understand." He nodded. "Accepting is not immediate. You are evaluating." "You will have time, but I need confirmation soon. My health may not allow extended delay." She took a breath. "And if I refuse, then the trust proceeds without your involvement. Decisions will be made, outcomes unaffected by your input." Her jaw tightened. "I don't want this to compromise my daughter or my life." Daniel's eyes held hers. "It won't. Discretion is paramount. Protocols are in place to isolate your family and your personal life from exposure. You will operate with separation from your daily existence as much as possible." She nodded slowly, letting the information sink. The risk was real, but so was the purpose. He was not seeking compliance. He was seeking alignment. "You have questions," Daniel said. "Ask now. I will answer fully." "What authority do I have if my judgment conflicts with the board?" she asked. "You have veto power in matters affecting moral and ethical decisions, decisions that could result in harm or exploitation. Operational matters remain separate, but your influence is decisive when principle is at stake." She exhaled sharply. "And my responsibilities will be anonymous to the public." "Yes. Your involvement remains undisclosed until the proper time. Even media, even employees, unaware of internal structures." Her eyes flicked to the lamp. Shadows stretched across the walls. "And if something goes wrong," Daniel's hands rested on the table. "We prepare for contingencies. We anticipate attempts to manipulate, to provoke, to destabilize. Security, legal, procedural buffers. If the worst occurs, your exposure remains minimal." She considered it. Emma, her routines, her life. Then the diner, the warmth, the coffee, the refusal of a $5 bill. The quiet power of that moment. "Why me?" she asked finally. "Why was I chosen?" Daniel's gaze softened slightly. "Because you act with consistency. You make decisions without expectation of reward. You see people, not transactions. You demonstrated integrity under pressure, something rare and uncorrupted." She leaned back, processing. "And my own children?" "They will be unaware for now," Daniel said. "The trust shields them from immediate knowledge. They will attempt interference, but their actions are contained within legal parameters. Their influence is bounded." A faint knock interrupted them. Daniel glanced toward the door. 2 men from his security detail stood waiting. Their presence was quiet but unmistakable. "You are protected," Daniel said, "by protocol and personnel. This meeting is confidential. No interruptions." Lily exhaled tension, leaving her in a fraction of a second. "And my choice yours entirely," he said. "You may walk away at any point before assuming formal responsibility, but I ask you to weigh the consequences carefully. This is not just about me. It is about the people who will be affected by inaction." She thought of the diner patrons, of Emma, of ordinary people, overlooked, dismissed, underestimated. She thought of the small, deliberate refusal of a $5 bill, the clarity in that action, and how it had revealed a man's true assessment of value. "I need time," she said. "You have it," Daniel replied, "but not indefinite time. Decisions must be made while I am still able to ensure the structure is sound. Delays increase risk." The lamp flickered slightly as snow blew against the window. Outside, the city was quiet, blanketed, and insulated, yet brimming with potential. Lily stood. "I'll think. I'll talk to my lawyer. I'll make a decision soon." Daniel nodded, rising as well. "That is all I ask." They walked toward the door, side by side, careful to maintain the professional distance the situation demanded. His gloves were tucked into his coat pocket. Her hands were empty, but poised fingers brushing the door frame lightly as they passed. Outside, the wind bit, again sharper now, carrying the distant noise of traffic footsteps on icy sidewalks, the faint echo of a bus horn. Daniel watched her merge into the street, coat pulled tight, posture erect, expression neutral. He did not follow. He did not call. He allowed her space. Behind him, the office remained silent. The folder sat closed on the table, a testament to plans yet to unfold. Outside the window, the river flowed gray and strong, a quiet mirror of the city and of choices waiting to be made. Lily walked home slowly, each step deliberate. Snow pressed into the soles of her shoes. Her mind calculated the possibilities, the risks, the balance of power she had glimpsed but not yet touched. Her heart surprisingly did not pound. It observed, it measured, it prepared. By the time she reached her apartment, Emma was still asleep, her breathing even. Lily entered quietly, laid her coat on the chair, and sat at the kitchen table. The envelope remained folded on the table, a weight both literal and symbolic. She opened it. Again, traced the folds, read the terms aloud softly, each word resonating differently in the empty apartment. Independent oversight, fiduciary authority, moral veto, security measures, discretion, responsibility, power, influence. She closed the envelope, placed it in her lap, and looked toward the window. Snow drifted against the glass in erratic patterns, then settled. Quiet, measured, inevitable. And for the first time, Lily felt the gravity of choice. Not as a waitress, not as a mother, not as a passive observer, but as someone who now stood at the edge of a system she had never imagined she would enter, poised between inaction and a responsibility that could reshape lives, fortunes, and legacies. The boardroom was colder than Lily expected. Glass walls reflected the gray sky, outside snowflakes drifting lazily, yet the air inside was charged with tension. She stepped through the doors, Thomas Hale at her side, and for the first time she felt the true weight of what awaited. Daniel Whitmore sat at the head of the table, sleeves rolled back, fingers, interlaced eyes, scanning the dozen directors in attendance. Each face was a study in calculation, eyes darting lips, pressed tight, subtle gestures betraying impatience or thinly veiled hostility. The nameplates in front of them glinted under the fluorescent lights. Not one spoke. Not yet. "You are on time," Daniel said, voice low, even, but carrying the authority of decades spent commanding outcomes. "Good. I want to begin immediately." Lily kept her eyes on him. She had rehearsed reactions, emotions, body language. None of it prepared her for the sheer anticipation that crackled across the table like electricity. Margaret Cole stood behind Daniel, holding the first stack of documents. She gave Lily a brief, reassuring nod. Lily inhaled slowly. This was no longer a test. This was a confrontation with the system itself, Ms. Carter-Daniel said, turning slightly. "I've asked you here because the decisions made in this room affect countless lives. And until now, the checks and balances have failed." Lily felt the eyes of the directors on her, measuring, questioning. Some whispered into tablets or papers, attempting to mask the subtle tremor in their voices. She remained still, scanning each face deliberately, noting posture, twitch, shift of weight. Evan Whitmore, Daniel's son, cleared his throat. "Father, we've reviewed the documents. We appreciate your concern, but this is unnecessary. The board has been managing the company for decades." Daniel's gaze flicked to him sharp. Decades of managing profits while overlooking consequences. "Tell me, Evan, where is the accountability for employees displaced communities affected products cut corners on? Where is the moral ledger in your calculations?" Murmurs spread across the room. The air felt heavier with each passing second. Lily's pulse was steady, controlled, but her hands itched to grip the table. She had been watching power operate from the margins for years. Now she was seated within it. Margaret handed her a folder. Lily opened it slowly. Financial statements, operational reports, audits, notes on key personnel. Not everything was familiar, but she scanned quickly, spotting anomalies, inconsistencies. She made mental notes. This was not just about defending herself or Daniel. It was about intervening before things spiraled beyond repair. One director leaned forward, voice silky. "Ms. Carter, with all due respect, your role here is not defined. You are new. Your involvement raises questions." Lily looked at him steadily. "Questions are fine. But if these questions are meant to delay or dismiss, then I have a suggestion. Ask them openly and I will answer. I am not here to debate legitimacy. I am here to ensure integrity." The room fell silent. Daniel's eyes never left her. Evan's jaw tightened. He had underestimated her, and the realization seemed to unsettle him more than anything else tonight. A sharp knock interrupted the silence. One of Daniel's security personnel entered, discreet. "Mr. Whitmore, Julia Whitmore, requested an emergency briefing. She is waiting outside." Daniel exhaled slowly. "Very well. Continue." Lily leaned forward slightly, letting the folder rest on the table. "Before that, I want to note discrepancies in last quarter's projections. Inventory reports do not match sales data in 3 major regions. This is not a minor oversight." The director who had questioned her earlier scoffed. "Those are minor variances, easily explained. Minor variances in a multi-billion-dollar company are rarely minor in impact," Lily said, voice steady, edged with quiet authority. "I have flagged them for review. I am prepared to provide recommendations to correct them." Daniel's eyes softened briefly. He nodded. "Thank you. That is precisely why you are here." Evan's lips pressed tighter. He whispered something to his mother across the table. Julia Whitmore's expression was calculated, sharp, but her eyes betrayed surprise. She had expected Lily to be cautious, hesitant, out of her depth. Instead, Lily was poised, assertive, and observing every detail. Daniel spoke again. "The company faces strategic decisions in the coming months. Many will attempt to exploit any weakness. Ms. Carter, you have the authority to intervene if ethical breaches occur. Operational hazards are ignored or decisions put profit over principle. You will advise me directly. Your recommendations are binding in matters outlined in the trust." The room reacted. A murmur. Fingers tapping on notepads, tablets swiping. Some directors exchanged uneasy glances. One older woman, face tight with indignation, spoke up. "This is unprecedented. We've never had a non-executive with binding authority intervene on ethical matters." Lily looked at her calmly. "Then consider it a safeguard, a check against oversight failure. I am not here to disrupt profits or micromanage. I am here to prevent harm that could otherwise go unnoticed." Daniel added, "This is not a question of loyalty to me. This is about the company's soul. Ms. Carter is empowered to act when necessary, independent of personal relationships or family interests." Evans slammed his fist on the table lightly. This is ridiculous. You can't put her in a position to override board decisions. Daniel's voice was cold, deliberate. I can. And I just did. Lily's gaze swept across the room. Directors stiffened. Some reddened. Others shifted uncomfortably. She felt the quiet thrill of realization her presence, previously invisible, now held consequence. One younger executive, trying to mask disbelief, leaned forward. Are we to understand she can stop projects, halt budgets, or affect mergers? Yes, Daniel said, within the ethical parameters outlined. She acts not for profit, but for principle. The murmurs rose briefly, then died down. Lily kept her eyes on the older woman across from her. She did not blink. And I will do so with transparency, documented and traceable. Nothing in secret, nothing hidden. Daniel's lips pressed in approval. Exactly. Integrity, not discretion for cover. This is a company that must survive the next generation's ambitions without losing its foundation. Evan leaned back, jaw tight. You've gone too far. This board will challenge this. Legally, financially, publicly. Then they will test the system, Daniel replied. And Ms. Carter is part of that system. If she is challenged unfairly, protections are in place. If she is challenged rightly, she will act accordingly. Lily exhaled softly, feeling the weight settle across her shoulders. She had been underestimated, pushed aside, treated as someone irrelevant. Now she was seated among the architects of billions entrusted with influence beyond anything she had imagined. A soft chime from the door announced Julia Whitmore's entrance. She stepped in, flawless and assertive eyes, calculating, aware that the balance of power had shifted slightly with Lily's presence. Thank you, Daniel said simply, acknowledging her without embellishment. Your timing is perfect. We will proceed with the next phase. Lily did not move, did not speak. She watched Julia, measured every gesture, every flicker of expression. She understood instantly the woman had influence, connections, and determination, but she had underestimated Lily's experience with vigilance, her patience, her clarity under observation. Daniel gestured toward Lily. This is the person you will be working alongside. She has insight, authority, and perspective. Treat her with the respect the position demands, not the assumptions you hold about age, background, or appearance. Julia's lips pressed tight. Understood, she said, voice clipped carefully neutral. Lily's eyes never left her. She nodded once, subtle, signaling acknowledgement without submission. Daniel returned his attention to the board. We move forward cautiously. Each decision will be monitored. Each action accountable. Ms. Carter will guide the ethical framework, and I will enforce it. The directors adjusted uncomfortably in their seats. Murmurs passed between them. Some attempted to question authority, others held their tongues. The balance of decades-long power had shifted in subtle, undeniable ways. Lily reached into her bag and placed the $5 bill on the table. Not as a token, not as a test, but as a reminder of why she was there and how small acts could reveal the measure of character. She did not speak. She did not need to. Daniel's eyes met hers across the table. A silent acknowledgement passed between them. Outside, the snow continued to fall, quiet and relentless, covering the city with a fragile, perfect layer. Inside, decisions were being made that would ripple outward, unseen, yet unstoppable. And for the first time, Lily Carter understood that she was no longer merely observing the world. She was shaping it. The city was quiet in the early morning streets, slick with melted snow that reflected the amber glow of streetlights. Lily pulled her coat, tighter scarf tucked around her neck, and walked past the shuttered shops toward the diner. Emma's backpack hung on the corner of her bed at home, abandoned in the rush, and Lily felt the familiar pull of responsibility, the weight of what had started as a single choice, a refusal of a $5 bill now expanding into something far larger than herself. Inside the diner smelled of coffee and toasted bread, warm and steady against the cold. Carl moved behind this counter, muttering about the delivery that had been delayed and the snow that had covered the parking lot. He glanced at Lily, suspicion in his eyes, but she ignored him. Her focus was already on the folder in her bag, the documents detailing her role in Daniel Whitmore's trust, the authority she would now wield, the consequences that accompanied it. By 9:30, the first board liaison arrived, a man in a dark overcoat carrying a tablet. He waited politely at the entrance, eyes scanning the diner, then gestured toward Lily. "Ms. Carter," he said, voice low. "Shall we proceed?" She nodded, setting down her bag and following him into the alley where a discreet SUV waited. The driver was silent, professional, and did not offer conversation. Lily's mind raced. Every step felt like a preparation for something monumental, though the city continued its indifferent rhythm around them. Snowdrifts pushed by wind scraped against the vehicle quiet, except for the soft hum of the tires on wet asphalt. They arrived at a low-rise office building on the outskirts of the city, unremarkable intentionally so. The interior smelled faintly of cedar and paper, the heating system humming quietly. A man in his 40s, sharply dressed, gestured for her to follow him into a small conference room. The room was stark functional. A single long table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing the city river below. It was cold, the way authority often felt, clean, calculated, unyielding. Daniel Whitmore was already there, standing by the window. His coat was off, hands folded behind his back. He looked older in this light shoulders, heavy with years, eyes sharp, scanning the room before they settled on her. He gestured to a chair. "Sit," he said, voice even but firm. Lily did, placing her bag on the floor beside her. Thomas Hale and Margaret Cole, Daniel's attorney, were also present. Margaret handed her a folder. Lily opened it slowly, scanning each page. Trust structure, oversight, protocols, contingency measures, ethical boundaries, security procedures. Each line carried weight. Each paragraph was layered with intention. "You are empowered," Daniel said, breaking the silence. "Not operationally, but morally and ethically. Your guidance will have authority when critical decisions arise. Your judgment will be binding in areas affecting employees, communities, and operational ethics." Lily leaned back, slightly absorbing the information. She traced the folds of the documents with her fingers. "I understand the parameters," she said. "I do not fully accept them yet, but I understand." "Acceptance is not immediate," Daniel replied. "Evaluation and consideration are part of the process, but I need confirmation before we proceed to implement the first phase." She glanced at Thomas. "And if I refuse, then the trust proceeds without your input," Daniel said flatly. "The mechanisms are in place. The structure functions regardless of participation, but the oversight you provide will be absent." She exhaled. "And the risks, family interference, media exposure, attempts to destabilize operations," Daniel said. "All mitigated but not eliminated. You will act decisively when boundaries are crossed." Lily studied the river visible through the window. Calm on the surface, yet the current ran strong beneath. The analogy was not lost on her. This role would demand vigilance, judgment, endurance. And yet it was precisely the challenge she had been preparing for her entire life without realizing it. "Why me?" she asked finally. "There are thousands more capable, educated, trained in governance." Daniel's eyes softened, though his posture did not. "Because you act consistently. You exercise judgment without expectation of reward. You protect those you care about under pressure. You are principled when under observation, unassuming when unnoticed. The $5 bill last week was a test, but it revealed the real measure of character. That was why you were chosen." Her chest tightened. "And if I fail?" "You will not," Daniel said. "You have the skill, the insight. You have already demonstrated resilience, judgment, and the courage to act ethically under scrutiny." Lily closed the folder, breathing evenly. She imagined Emma at home growing up watching her mother navigate these waters. She imagined the consequences of inaction the lives impacted if ethical breaches went unchecked. She realized then that her choices now could ripple far beyond the walls of any building, affecting thousands who would never know her name. Daniel continued, "Your role will begin discreetly. No public announcements. Your participation is confidential until it becomes necessary. Security and legal buffers will protect you and your family. You will have support at every turn." "And the board?" Lily asked. "They will be informed of your authority in narrow terms," Daniel replied. "But your identity, your presence, your connection to decisions, limited to those who must know. The rest will operate without knowing who you are or why the oversight exists." She nodded slowly. "I can work with that. For now." "Good," Daniel said. "Tonight, you will review communications protocols. Tomorrow, we implement the first advisory phase. You will observe, intervene when necessary, and report directly to me." Lily took a breath. "Understood." "And my daughter?" Protected Daniel said. "You will maintain normal routines. Exposure is minimized, risks controlled." She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them. The weight of choice had shifted from abstract to tangible. She understood that inaction was a decision just as much as participation. She thought of the diner, the small act of integrity, and how it had revealed a man's measure of value. "I'll do it," she said finally. "I will participate, under the terms we discussed." Daniel nodded once, approving, but did not relax. Authority was never relaxed. "Then we begin. Caution first. Impact measured. Influence exercised only when necessary." A soft hum rose from the building as snow fell against the windows. The city beyond remained indifferent, oblivious to the quiet decisions being made that would soon affect its people, its economy, and the lives of those who would never know who had guided them. Lily picked up the $5 bill from her pocket and laid it on the table, a quiet reminder of where this had begun. Not as a test of wealth, nor of gratitude, but of character. She did not need to say anything. Daniel understood. Outside, snow drifted against the pavement, covering footprints in a temporary white veil. Inside, authority had shifted subtly. Lily Carter had stepped into a world that had underestimated her, and now carefully, deliberately, she held influence over outcomes that mattered. She smiled faintly, not triumphantly, but with awareness, resolve, and readiness. The road ahead would be long, and the storms would be harsher than any snow she had walked through before, but she had chosen, and that choice carried power. As she rose from the chair, folded the folder neatly, and returned the $5 bill to her pocket, she knew her life had changed. Not because of money, not because of a title, but because someone had recognized her integrity and she had agreed to wield it. Later, when the city stirred with morning traffic and distant horns, Lily stepped outside. Snow still fell thick, relentless. She took a deep breath, the cold sharp against her lungs, and felt the clarity of purpose settle deep in her chest. The first day of influence, responsibility, and vigilance had begun. Like, subscribe, comment.